So how do we support others? Find out on this episode of IncreMental Health Tips. Welcome to IncreMental Health Tips. My name is Jared, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host Liz. Today we're going to talk about a very common situation that arises in relationships, and that's trying to support somebody else through a difficult time that they may be going through. Now, this could be something as small as maybe they had a rough day, to something big, like a really severe problem, like maybe a loss of a loved one or something larger. So, to begin, I think context is a little bit important because the first question, I guess, Liz, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but an important consideration to begin our discussion is, are we in a position where it is appropriate to support that person through a hard time? Or do they want us to support them?
Yeah, so that can depend on a lot of factors. So, for example, if you're seeing a loved one who's having some symptoms of bipolar and then you notice they're really manic, they're not sleeping, you might not be in the position to help them because the help that they really need is they need some professional help in order to be able to diagnose and address those symptoms. Or you could also have someone who's experienced something and they might not be ready to talk about it at that specific moment, and so they may set up a boundary to say they don't want to talk, and that could be as simple as they just don't answer the phone.
Or they may only want to engage in a certain way. Like a lot of people, if they're going through a tough time, might vent on social media, which might give them some sort of support in the sense that they get to vent how they're feeling and maybe get others who might wish them well, so we need to understand if we're in a position to give this person help or not. So in that, there's some advice I've heard. This is very useful in marital relationships. It's something, admittedly, I need to do more, but whenever somebody is bringing something to your attention, raising an issue or talking about a tough situation that they're going through, it can be useful to ask, is this something you just want to be heard on, or is this something you want me to help you with? And so establishing that expectation of, do you just want an ear right now, or do you want me to actually intervene in some way? That can actually be really helpful, because if you have different expectations, if the person who is in need really doesn't want your help and you're offering it, you might actually just be making the problem worse.
Yeah, and there's a lot of factors that can go into this, and a lot of times people, they just want to feel that there's someone there to listen to them. So they might not be looking for a solution to the issue. They just want to know someone's there listening. A lot of times what I hear is, I don't want to talk to my friends about this. I have no one to discuss this with. I don't want to talk to my coworkers or whatever. And so they're just looking for someone who's outside their situation to listen. And if they're confiding in a friend, a lot of the time they might kind of want that same thing where they just want someone to listen. They're not actually looking for a solution. They just want to talk about how hard it is. And it's very similar to what we discussed in the podcast last week about empathy, that they just want to know someone acknowledges how hard it is for them.
Well, as well, they may not be looking for a solution. They might have the solution. It just might be a difficult process as well.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times when someone's trying to support another person, they think, oh, if I don't help them figure out what to do, then I'm not giving them the support they need, and that might not be what they're looking for in that moment.
Well, and they may not know what they need either, which can be, an assessment not all of us are very good at making. So there's a lot of things that factor in. I'm just thinking specifically of a person I know who was coming down from some substance use issues with alcohol and was attending Alcoholics Anonymous, which I don't have strong opinions on that approach. I'm not an addictions expert, but where this person went counter, she went counter to the whole cold turkey approach, and not because she had a weak will, but it was more so because she was a licensed nurse and understood that there was some physiological reasons to just reduce your intake because this person was excessively using alcohol, but was reducing it down. And so just over time, reducing it. But this came because she had an informed opinion and some expertise in the field. So the other thing, too, to consider, and the point I'm raising with this is you might want, if you don't have the expertise or the person you're trying to help doesn't have the expertise, it doesn't hurt to seek some resources and some expertise yourself and to ask. If you know somebody who's been through something similar, you can, of course, maintain privacy and confidentiality, but say, how do you support someone through the loss of a spouse, for example? Like, how can you support somebody in that? And you may get some valuable insight from someone who's been there.
Yeah, and if you know of something that your friend can do, then you can make that suggestion. I do think the first steps, though, are just asking about their needs, trying to understand what's going on, what have they tried, getting a sense of what the issue is like for them. And you don't want to offer anything that you can't provide. So, if they're asking something that you can't do, then don't say yes to that. If you have to say no, then you might try to find an alternative that you could do that might meet some of their need, but may not be able to meet all of it. And you can also ask them about what they've tried to get an understanding of, what comes to their mind when they're thinking of how to solve this issue, because then that might reveal the things that they may not have thought of yet.
Well, as well, and I think you touched on something important there, is the going through a difficult time is going to be a process. And so you don't have to fix it all at once. And so even if you make progress, it can be useful even just to draw the person's attention to progress they've made specifically. If they're struggling at a job, you might say, well, today was better at least than yesterday, so maybe tomorrow will be better as well. And so, just as an example, so understanding that it is a process, it is gradual, it is incremental.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've noticed my clients really appreciate is when I point out to them the good things that I see them doing. A lot of times they're trying so hard, they're doing a lot of different things. And sometimes even when someone's doing all the right things, it can still be hard and stressful just because of what the person's dealing with. Even something as simple as buying a new house, that can come with a lot of stress, even if you're really excited about it.
For sure. And supporting somebody is never going to be, it's not necessarily something you can do by yourself. So maybe you support that person through a part of it, and maybe others support them through another part of it. So, but everybody is different, and every problem is different too.
Yeah, and there are important questions to ask about what resources they're using and what resources they have available to them. A lot of times people don't think about the importance of their family doctor, especially with the situation you mentioned earlier about doing a detox from alcohol. Getting that medical insight from a doctor really is something essential in that situation, because you might not know what to expect from the withdrawal symptoms, and it can actually be dangerous to just go cold turkey from alcohol if you've been drinking regularly for quite a while. And also looking at what your workplace benefits are. Do you have mental health coverage through an insurance or through an employee assistance program? Or, what other health benefits or resources are available in your community?
Well, as well, so those are some great are some great resources and tips for people seeking more information. Do you have any other suggestions or resources?
Just take a listen to our podcast that we did last week on empathy. It has a lot of good insight on how you can have that conversation with someone, what you should say. And as well, if anyone has any questions, please put them in the comments down below.
And on that note, we'll finish up for this week, but thank you very much for joining us. Be sure that you like, share, comment, and subscribe. We really appreciate it. And until next time, remember that small steps can lead to big changes. We'll see you next time.